And speaking of no sweat, I would think that it would be no sweat for the Hawks tonight, right? They've got their new guy in Quin Snyder. They're a couple of games ahead of the Wizards in the Eastern Conference in the 8th spot versus the Wiz being in the 10th spot. So everything should be all gravy in this first matchup. Oddly enough, this late in the season is the first matchup between the Hawks and the Wizards. And it's interesting because most of the attention has been on, wow, very interesting timing that the Hawks decided to bring Quin Snyder in, right? But he himself gave a couple of reasons why he wanted to get started right away as head coach. He talked about wanting to go on a run in these last 21 games, how it just made sense because he wanted to be able to establish a culture right away. So when you think about his rationale and the fact that, hey, he said, I'll pull up off Costa Rica and pull up into Atlanta early, no problem, to make sure that I can put a stamp on this team and on this franchise sooner rather than later. What do you think that says about him?
I think it shows initiative.
Yeah.
I think, and when you think about the type of guy he is, and we got a chance, he got a chance to David Locke got a chance to join Hitting Hard with John Chuckery, and David Locke, the guy who's the host on Locked On Jazz, and he's also the big man around these parts, right here on the Locked On Network. He
and
is
radio
also
voice, right?
And the play-by-play radio voice for the Utah Jazz. So he is very, very familiar with Quin Snyder. And one thing that kind of really stood out to me when he talked about him is the fact that he said that this is the type of guy that you can't fool. You can't fool him. He said he's the type of guy that is real. He's authentic. And if you aren't authentic with him, he will call you out. Mm-hmm. And that's what I feel like this team absolutely needs. Now, he's not coming in from a standpoint of, hey, I need you to keep it real with me, but and not willing to give on this end too. He's coming in with open mind, open ears, saying, "Hey, I want to feel you. I want to understand you. I want to get to know you as a player and what your ins and outs are." And I think a 21 game sample size is a pretty good head start too. So it makes sense that he's the type of guy that wants to come in right now, get in there and see what's going on with this team, and also bounce the ideas off of the staff that's already there. And I think that's going to be really key too, because you don't want to get to a situation where essentially you're out there by yourself and you got all these disgruntled assistant head coaches because they know that, hey, at the end of the year, I'm probably up out of here.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, as I listen to what your thoughts are or your feedback is based on what David Locke's thoughts are, I'm thinking, okay, we never really talk about the coach having that dog in him. But if you're going to call somebody out and you're going to be an honest, straight, no chaser type of guy, that's also a way to set the culture. That's also a way to set the standard to say, hey, we're going to get after it. And if we don't all get after it, then that's a problem, because not just individually should we get after it or collectively, but when you break it down for individuals, I should see each and every person contributing to the collective. And that's probably why Jarvis used that side-eye picture of Quin Snyder yesterday for our episode, because what Quin Snyder is not about to do is play games with you when it comes to his expectations of who you need to be when you hit that court. Now, interestingly enough, there are still a lot of eyes, both locally and nationally, on this situation, because no one can really think about a true head coach hire at this point. And some people are saying in the middle of the season, no, it ain't the middle. This is 3/4 of the way through the season. This is unprecedented. Exactly. This is unprecedented. So it really points the finger at Landry Fields, who says that he is where the decisions stop in the front office. Well, okay, if that's where you want to stand, then the question becomes, we're looking at the last 21 games. It's the first sort of requiem on Quin Snyder. So does Landry Fields hiring Quin Snyder immediately based on expectations for him and based on Quin's expectations for himself, is it justified?
Ooh, I think that's one of those, pending, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a pending one. That's a pending charge for sure, because when you think about being able to come in and do what he says he wants to do, like, that's going to take some work, because like he even talked about in his press conference yesterday about how he has to go dig into the film and jump into the film, because he needs to see what the issues are and what is real, because he literally had just met with the players a couple of hours before the press conference. So, and there was a couple of guys there that were actually there for the presser as well, and Jalen Johnson, and I saw Bo out there as well, kind of kicking it and kind of seeing what's going on. So that's good to see that when you see those guys showing up like that. But I just think from a standpoint of being justified, I really feel like if Quinn comes in,
Mm-hmm.
it's funny saying Quinn and I'm
Yes, it is.
talking about basketball. Like
I was thinking
I
the
still kind
same.
of messing me up. So I almost kind of go to Falcon mode almost. But when you think about Quinn coming in and saying, "Hey, here's what I want to do. Here's how I want to establish myself. I'm open ears. I want to see what this team looks like in the short term and the long term." All of those things can be justified by simply coming in and winning. Like
Yes.
they got 2 games after they with Prunty as the interim coach, and I think
Mhm.
that those are some I saw some things that were different, even though it was only 2 games. So I think with the $8 million head coach and a guy who wants to get in here right away, we need to see some differences in these next couple of games, Steve, because those are some of the things that we know for a fact have to be in there to justify this move, because there are some people who question, not me necessarily, that hey, you only interviewed one guy, so how
Essentially.
extensive was this search?
Yeah. And for me, it's interesting that you said like you saw some things that you liked and we want to see whether or not we'll see him again. For me, I'm looking more at the things that I saw that I didn't like, that
Mm.
were very consistent with what I've seen out of this team when it goes into its swoons. Now they escaped. They escaped
Oh yeah.
on Sunday when they played the Nets, right? But what
Yep.
I saw that I did not like was 16 turnovers. We're back to that. So to
Oof.
me,
Yeah.
that's a challenge, if you will.
Unacceptable.
Yeah. And then we're also, right, unacceptable to turn over the ball that much, unacceptable to allow the Nets to go off on for 26 fast break points and 44 points in the paint. I mean, where's the yeah? So to me, that's kind
Where's
of
the D?
falling back to where's the D? There it is. There it is. So that's kind of falling back into that situation. And yeah, they had a good night against the Nets as far as the 3-point shooting was concerned.
Yeah.
But for me, I still didn't like 30 shots. Like I still would have preferred you to not have 30 shots when all you had was 8 points in the paint.
Yeah.
Or fast break points, excuse me. So that's the thing that concerns me, that I want to see. Okay, what are some of the subtle tweaks in those areas that have been persistent, regardless of whether it was Joe Prunty at the helm or Nate McMillan at the helm? And also, I want to see a game where if you are leading and in a commanding lead, 1, 2, or 3 quarters in, let's not have this back and forth. Like they went up double digits on the Nets, but then the Nets went up double digits on them. They were up by 40 plus points on the Cavs, and then the Cavs come back and make it a single digit game. I don't want to see that. Those
No.
are the types of things where I want to see what kind of tweaks, maybe not all tonight, Jarvis, but slowly but surely want to see what kind of tweaks Quin Snyder is able to bring to the table for this team, so that we can see a reversal of some of those lapses in thoughts and lapses in how they go about their technique and their focus, and how they use their basketball IQ. But speaking of that, I'm sure that a lot of other eyes are on what's going on here, because it's a very unique situation. So if you want to hear more about it, check out Locked On Sports Today. I'm sure they're going to talk about that, as well as the continuing saga of what this CBA, the collective bargaining agreement, will be in the NBA. And of course, the NFL Combine, because that officially kicked off today. And of course, position players get it in starting tomorrow. So don't forget, after you check us out to hear all about the NFL Combine, what's going on with the Hawks and everything Sports Atlanta, check out Locked On Sports Today. And of course, you guys love For the Culture, especially with the stuff we'll talk about today. It'll be pretty cool, but they have their own version with Take of the Day. So again, you check us out on YouTube, check them out there too. And wherever you get your podcast and download all your podcasts, it's ATL Day Ones for you first, but not far behind. Locked On Sports Today.